Hey everybody, it's Jon Meyers from Write Better Together. Look everybody, it's Emily Brooks, and we're interrupting your YouTube viewing again for something.
Yes, we are doing a free live webinar on
Oh.
November 9th at 9 p.m. Eastern or 8 p.m. Central. And we always talk about write better together and get out of your bubble. And that's what we're doing by inviting you to talk with us about story. So our topic is story. Is it what you think it is? Why do we tell stories and how do we tell them better?
It's free and it's live, and I'm glad we interrupted what they were watching because that's cool. I'm gonna be there.
I am too. And we'll get to meet you and talk with you. And I'm so excited about that. So if you want to come, you can RSVP by going to writebettertogether.com/contact. And then in the subject box, putting in RSVP.
Yep, and then we'll send you a link back out for where you grant us permission for your face to be on there, and we'll take it from there.
Yep. Can't wait to see you.
Welcome everybody to Only Murders in the Building. I'm Steve Martin. Hey, look everybody, it's Selena Gomez.
Oh my goodness.
What?
What podcast is this?
What happened here? I think I'll talk about why I said that in a minute. I'm really Jon Meyers. Hey, look everybody, it's really Emily Brooks.
Hello, Jon Meyers.
What was that?
I was not expecting that.
What are we going to be talking about today?
We have quite the list.
Yay.
We have Charlotte Winters on.
Oh. She's very smart.
She's very smart, and she's going to talk about why you shouldn't quit your day job and also why you shouldn't be discouraged if you have a day job. It's a very uplifting conversation, and it's great, and she's great.
And it was a result of a very serendipitous moment.
It was. Before that, we're going to have our listener responses.
Yes.
Charlotte's going to give you a call to action, which is excellent. Stick around for that. Then we're going to have a Hey Jon Meyers segment where I teach Jon Meyers something.
That required lots of preparation.
Yes. And maybe even getting out of my bubble.
Oh.
And then we're going to have the final act where we play a silly game hosted by Jon Meyers this week.
Tied to the topic that Charlotte Winters was talking about.
I'm very intrigued.
All right. So we haven't seen each other since we got out of our bubble, and we saw each other for the first time in person, live and in person.
Not the first time.
For the second time. For the first time since the film festival is what I was going to say.
Yes.
It's the second time in person since this entire thing started. We've only seen each other twice.
It's pretty crazy. But we went to WriterCon. I hope you all were there. I know that some of you were.
Yes, I know. I saw them with my own eyes.
And let me just say, so so in Sunday school yesterday, no, 2 days ago, I mentioned how awesome this conference was, and I was like, everybody was just so nice and supportive. They're not competitive with each other. Everybody is just like helping each other out. And everyone was like, what? What kind of industry is that? Like, and it made me realize we really do have something special in this community, in this writing community, and at WriterCon that so many other industries don't have.
True, and other conventions don't have.
Yeah. Just to be in a place full of people who it's not about them trying to meet you and find out what they can like get out of you. It's how can I serve you? And that's really special. Just so many people looking out for you and going, oh, you need to meet this person. You need to meet this person.
It was great. And it's super positive. I got to be on the advisory committee for the first time. Because I'm a 3-year veteran, and the whole 45-minute meeting of the advisory committee was all about positivity, which totally fits with the vibe of our show and our book. And that, like, even the critiques, like the first page what do you want, sessions, they're meant to be spun in a positive way. Still valid critiques, but they need to be positive.
Yeah. And speaking of it, like fitting our podcast, so many of the sessions were about mental health and positivity and just writing anyway. And I felt so just connected to these people in that way.
They were our tribe. They were our people.
Yes.
I agree 100%.
And I'm sure we'll be talking about it a lot more on the podcast.
Yeah, we'll talk. So we're recording this in the middle of September. I think this episode, don't hold me to this, is going to air on October 1st. And so between then and now, we have 2 more people from WriterCon coming on, Renee and Bob. And so we'll talk more about it then. So people in person, we had listeners and viewers. David Corbly, who we'll talk about in a second, was one of them, and who had actually watched the podcast and seen the podcast. But we had so many, obviously, that didn't, and that we were new to them, and they were baffled by the fact that you're 2 months older than I am, and that they were like how, because we met in grad school, so we had to be the same age, and so there were conventions and tropes of the podcast that we carried into real life outside of our bubble. And then we blew their minds.
We
And
really did.
someone said you needed another old guy, and then you'd be like Only Murders in the Building. And, because it's Martin Short and Steve Martin and Selena Gomez. And then I'm like, what are you saying?
What?
Are you saying, like, we're the same age? How can you say that? And then I was watching the episode with your dad, and there were 2 bald guys and you and on that episode, and it kind of was like Only Murders in the Building, except that Steve Martin and Martin Short both have full heads of hair, and also no one of the 3 of us are as old as Steve Martin and Martin Short. But so that's where that came from. They just didn't know how to process that.
I had never thought about like that dynamic before. That doesn't exist since we're the same age.
Correct. And your birthday's coming up.
It is.
So then what? Then you're going to be a year and 2 months older than me?
Oh, so you don't age?
Well, no, in November, then I'll catch up.
My birthday comes up, but you don't.
Correct. Yep.
Oh, okay.
But then in November, then I'll catch up, and then it'll be back to 2 months. It'll be back to 2 months, because that's how the calendar works. So yeah, that's where that came from. And
I was wondering.
We'll talk more about it later. We were different in person than we are on the camera, because like I said where I lived, like to a whole
I know,
room full of
I was
people.
shocked.
And then you said something about being 3-year-old in a specific year in a whole room full of people, which meant that we can still be the same age, but then it puts us in the younger age range as opposed to the older.
Here's the thing about my age. I like letting people know my age, because otherwise they think I'm a teenager.
I heard that in person.
2 times during this trip. So the first time was so my husband is very tall, and so in the airplane we always get the emergency exit rows. There's a sign that says you have to be over 15.
Yes, there is.
And so the flight attendant came up and was like, "Are you 15?" And I just like nodded, like, yes. and my husband just goes, "That's my wife." And the flight attendant just said, "Keep doing what you're doing." And then later at the conference,
yes,
after I spoke, this one lady just comes up to me and is like, "Are you 16?" So I like people to know, I like to give people hints of my age, especially my students early on. I let them do the math. I'll be like, I graduated in 2016. And I just let them kind of do the math and figure that out.
What do they think you're like? don't cut this part out of the podcast because
Okay.
it'll get referred to in future episodes. What do they think? If they don't, your husband doesn't look that old enough for his daughter. What do they think you are?
Some people have thought that before.
Oh,
Um, Mostly I think when he has like a full beard and then just next to each other, he's so much taller than me that I guess it makes me look younger. So I don't know the answer. Um,
but
in
some
most
people do
circum
think you're his daughter.
that has occurred. Yes.
I think he looks. I think he looks too young to be your
We're the
father.
same age.
Huh?
He's 1 year older than me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I know that, and yeah, he doesn't look old enough to be your father.
So
So,
it's them thinking he's older than he is and them thinking that I'm much younger than I am.
and it
So,
says more about them than it does about you and him because
yes.
it's a crazy assumption. Just like that I'm as old as Steve Martin or Martin Short. All right, what's next?
We have listener responses.
Oh, speaking of David Corbly,
Who is a
uh,
wonderful human being.
he's a wonderful human being. Um,
While you're getting it, he found out my
I'm
husband
writing
was
something down for
in
later.
Oklahoma City with us
And
and that he didn't have much to do. And so he gave him a list of ideas, and it was very sweet.
David Corbly, I told him to email this to you and he didn't, but he did respond in writing. He watches the show and he's like, oh, I love this about it, or I love when she does this, or I love when you guys talk about birds and stuff. And but he says that the star of the show is Winnie and that he needs more Winnie. And that Winnie needs, like, there needs to be a best of Winnie, and Winnie needs to make more appearances. Winnie needs her own segment, and he's very pro Winnie. And he told me to tell you that, and I told him to email you and tell you himself.
He needs to listen to the episode where we talk about Shih Tzus.
I told him that.
Yeah,
I told him that very thing. So there you go.
that's
Winnie, wherever you are,
hilarious.
you have a fan.
Winnie needs a haircut, and so I don't want to show her. She's
Oh,
unpresentable.
to keep you extra warm for the winter. Don't give her a haircut till later.
Yep.
So there you go. That's your viewer response for the day.
Which means it's time for our conversation with Charlotte Winters.
Oh, the smart one. And we're back. I am still Jon Meyers from Write Better Together. Hey, look, everybody. It's still Emily Brooks.
Hello, and hey, look, everybody, it's Charlotte Winters.
Charlotte
Hey!
Winters. Where'd she
Hey,
come from?
welcome.
Thank
Where
you.
are you? Where are you, Charlotte?
I'm in the nameless void.
Oh,
Whoa.
that's where I live. is that anywhere near Charlotte? Charlotte is. I'm in the same nameless void. Emily, you're the only one with a point on the map. Charlotte, we asked you here for a specific purpose. What would that purpose be? Tell the people.
Well, Jon Meyers, I believe
Oh,
you wanted me to talk about day jobs.
why would I want you to talk about that?
Because I wrote an article on my blog, modernscreenplay.com, that was talking about the wisdom that I gleaned from Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic book. And you thought maybe it would be worth it if I just kind of shared what I got from this book, because oftentimes it is a time honored tradition that a writer has a day job. And what I would say is that oftentimes there can be a lot of negativity towards having a day job if you pursue writing as a calling. And I thought that this chapter in the book really kind of broke it down, and it really, I don't know, it just gave me a new perspective to look at day jobs with. And I thought that it would be beneficial to share with other people.
And what you don't know is that you almost had to share it because I had just read. So Emily and I just got back from Oklahoma City. It will be a couple months by the time this airs, and we taught a master class, and one of the points in the master class was you take this serendipitous moment and you actually use it to propel your project forward. And I had read your blog post, and then one of our guests from Belmont University, Sarah Weigel, mentioned the same book like 24 hours later, the exact same book. And so that's when I reached out to you and asked you to be on, because like that, we don't believe in coincidence, right? That happened for a reason. And it also proves that we're not scripted, right? We don't have like, all of this is off the cuff, and Emily never knows what I'm going to talk about. I never know what Emily's going to talk about, other than the topic. And that topic, we had not planned it in some meeting somewhere. It happened because I read your blog, and then it came out of Sarah Weigel's mouth, and now you're here.
Yep.
You say we. I do believe there are coincidences, but I also
Okay.
think pay attention because
Okay.
we can still draw from things.
So Emily believes in coincidences. I believe that everything happens for a reason.
I believe that too. I believe that there's something that is going on that is beyond our scope and our limited, conception. I do think that there is a divine intelligence. And it just is translated into many different forms, but I do believe fundamentally we are all connected.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
So I didn't tell Jon Meyers this, I don't think, but I haven't read the book, but I have listened to the podcast Big Magic. Like years ago, I listened to some of her interviews.
Oh.
And so I'm really curious what this chapter says that you're going to talk about.
Absolutely. Great. Well, yes, I listened to the audiobook about 5 or 6 years ago. And of course, because in my, I don't know, internet travels, it came up again. And so I thought, wouldn't it be good at that time I was looking for a job, and it was sort of like, sometimes I just feel really confused about like the whole writer has day job that is not writing versus writer has, is quote unquote a professional writer, right? And that the income is generated from writing, right? Because it feels as though the age that we live in, there's kind of a contraction that's going on with writing for pay. And I picked up the book and I re-listened to the audiobook, and I'm just going to transition into reading this chapter. It's only about 5 pages long because again, it kind of reoriented my perspective. So here we go on page 152. Your day job. The whole time I was practicing to be a writer, I always had a day job. Even after I got published, I didn't quit my day job just to be on the safe side. In fact, I didn't quit my day job, or my day jobs, I should say, until I had already written 3 books. And those 3 books were all published by major houses and were all reviewed nicely in the New York Times. One of them had even been nominated for a National Book Award. From an outside perspective, it might have looked like I had already made it, but I wasn't taking any chances, so I kept my day job. It wasn't until my 4th book, and that book was freaking Eat, Pray, Love, for heaven's sakes, that I finally allowed myself to quit all other work and become nothing other than a writer of books. I held on to those other sources of income for so long because I never wanted to burden my writing with the responsibility of paying for my life. I knew better than to ask this of my writing because over the years, I have watched so many other people murder their creativity by demanding that their art pay the bills. I've seen artists drive themselves broke and crazy because of this insistence that they are not legitimate creators unless they can exclusively live off their creativity. And when their creativity fails them, meaning doesn't pay the bills, doesn't pay the rent, they descend into resentment, anxiety, or even bankruptcy. Worst of all, they quit creating at all. And I've always felt that this is so cruel to your work, to demand a regular paycheck from it, as if creativity were a government job or a trust fund. Look, If you can manage to live comfortably off your inspiration forever, that's fantastic. That's everyone's dream, right? Don't let that dream turn into a nightmare. Financial demands can put so much pressure on the delicacies and vagaries of inspiration. You must be smart about providing for yourself. To claim that you're too creative to think about financial questions is to infantilize yourself. And I beg you not to infantilize yourself because it's demeaning to your soul. While it's lovely to be childlike in your pursuit of creativity, in other words, it's dangerous to be childish. Other self-infantilizing fantasies include the dreams of marrying for money, the dream of inheriting money, the dream of winning the lottery, and the dream of finding a studio wife, male or female, who will look after all your mundane concerns so that you can be free to commune with inspiration forever in a peaceful cocoon, utterly sheltered from the inconveniences of reality. Come now. This is a world, not a womb. You can look after yourself in this world while looking after your creativity at the same time, just as people have done for ages. What's more, there is a profound sense of honor to be found in looking after yourself, and that honor will resonate powerfully in your work. It will also make your work stronger. Also, it may be the case that there are seasons when you can live off your art and seasons when you cannot. This need not be regarded as a crisis. It's only natural in the flux and uncertainty of a creative life. Or maybe you took a big risk in order to follow some creative dream and it didn't quite pay off. So now you have to work for the man for a while to save up money until it's time to go chase your next dream. That's fine too. Just do it. But to yell at your creativity saying you must earn money for me is sort of like yelling at a cat. It has no idea what you're talking about, and all you're doing is scaring it away because you're making really loud noises and your face looks weird when you do that. I have I held on to day jobs for so long because I wanted to keep my creativity free and safe. I maintained alternative streams of income so that when my inspiration wasn't flowing, I could say to it reassuringly, "No worries, mate. Just take your time. I'm here whenever you're ready." I was always willing to work hard so that my creativity could play lightly. In doing so, I became my own patron. I became my own studio wife. So many times I've longed to say to stressed out, financially strapped artists, just take the pressure off yourself, dude, and get a job. There's no dishonor in having a job. What is dishonorable is scaring away your creativity by demanding that it pay for your entire existence. This is why whenever anyone tells me they're quitting their day job in order to write a novel, my palms get a little sweaty. This is why when anyone tells me that their plan for getting out of debt is to sell their first screenplay, I'm like, yikes. Write that novel. Yes, definitely try to sell that screenplay. I hope with all my heart that good fortune finds you and showers you with abundance. But don't count on the payoff. I beg of you, only because such payoffs are exceedingly rare, and you might very well kill off your creativity by holding it to such a harsh ultimatum. You can always make your art on the side of your bread and butter job. That's what I did for 3 whole books. And if it hadn't been for the banana success of Eat, Pray, Love, that's what I'd still be doing now. That's what Toni Morrison did when she used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning in order to work on her novels before going off to her real life career in the publishing world. That's what J.K. Rowling did back when she was an impoverished single mother, struggling to get by and writing on the side. That's what my friend Ann Patchett did when she worked as a waitress at TGI Fridays and wrote in her spare hours. That's what a busy married couple I know does, both of them illustrators, both of them with full-time jobs, when every morning they rise a full hour before their children awake to sit across from each other in their small studio space and quietly draw. People don't do this kind of thing because they have all kinds of extra time and energy for it. They do this kind of thing because their creativity matters to them enough that they're willing to make all kinds of extra sacrifices for it. Unless you come from landed gentry, that's what everyone does.
You should be the one reading the audiobook.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, thank you.
That's
I hate the sound of my voice.
that's
Aw.
a multiple. That's could be one of your multiple streams of income, right there.
Yeah.
I can see that being so like such a weight lifted off of so many people's shoulders. So how did that, so obviously like this really affected you. So how did it affect you?
I love that question. It was kind of like, I think for the last few years, when I mean, I was temping, I was doing all of the odd jobs, everything. And I had this silent resentment towards having a day job. And then I hated myself because it was just like, no, this day job is, it's paying for my life so that I can write. And I really just had to sit down and just have a pep talk with myself and just say, okay, maybe this is the time when I finally stop hating day jobs, period, because I'm creating my own suffering by wishing that something was different from what it is. Instead of just accepting, okay, this is it. And then it was sort of like, and I had heard this before, and I've seen this before. Like, if you think about like John Grisham, and by the way, I was re listening to the audiobook this morning as I was walking around, just prepping for this. And I was thinking of David Baldacci, and somebody was walking by with a David Baldacci book under his arm. And I was just kind of like, no, this is just how it is. These people were lawyers. There was another famous novelist who got his MA from Vanderbilt in creative writing. I'm totally jumping on the name, but James Patterson. He was the president and CEO of an ad agency in New York, if I'm not mistaken. He was getting up in the morning and writing. And you got to think like, okay, before finally, I think in his 50s or I don't know, in his midlife somewhere, he was all of a sudden, the gates opened and he could quit his day job and just write for full time. But I think that, it happens when it happens. And I think what the most important thing is, developing that discipline to just do it on the off hours and stay firm to it. But then it's also just like, when you're at work and learn as much as possible. Work doesn't have to be this horrible slog.
Mm.
It really doesn't. And I did find a job that I actually really like. And it's just like, I've had a kind of a season of just getting used to the job. So it's just like I have to get back to my blogging, but I am still writing like my screenplay and stuff like that. And I'm just developing the discipline of just writing every day, even if it's that. And because here's the thing, if I don't write, then it sort of just feels like I'm a cog in the machine, right? And nobody
Mm.
wants to feel like that. Nobody really wants to be like, gee, I was put on this earth so I can work for someone else. How great, right? But it's sort of like if I have just total unemployment and all I'm doing is writing, then I am freaking out on my creativity. That's just the way that I'm wired. So it's almost just like I got a piece where my job, like a piece with a day job where it was sort of like, okay, this pays for my bread and butter and I'm so grateful for it, but I don't have to worry about my job in the morning when I'm writing, and I'm just going to let this go and I'm just going to take kind of the pressure off. And I also want to share an anecdote um, of this happening in my own life. So I was in LA for about 16 years and I got my MFA from UCLA and I worked in and out of TV and film. And again, odd jobs all around, always, working to pay for that high cost of living. Right. And I was grinding and I was hustling and I was going to writers groups and everything like that. And what I noticed was my parents, they had me later in life. Right. So by the time I was doing that, they had already retired and they retired in Denmark. And what was interesting was that my dad was a retired physician and he always loved writing. And basically, for 10 years, he worked on creating a nonfiction book that was only like it was following his bliss. It was like weird, um, weird anecdotes about the discoveries of certain medicines. Like that's what really would cause him to be in front of the computer for 8 hours a day, just researching like how did Viagra come about, right? And so we would always talk like in the morning whenever I was driving to one of these jobs, and I was talking about like the hustle and the grind, and yeah, I'm working and I'm writing. And he'd be like, oh, I just discovered this amazing anecdote about how contact lenses, were come about. Like, this is what, like, you should have heard him. It's just like his face, I could hear it over the phone. His face just totally lit up, and it was just like the most captivating thing ever. And so he worked for 10 years on something that he only wanted to get published as an Amazon book, right? Self-published. And the most bizarre thing happened was once he did do that, my half brother went to a grade school reunion and chatted up a publisher, a small New York publisher. And the next thing we knew, when my dad was 89 years old, he got a book deal.
Wow.
And 18 months later, it was in Barnes and Noble.
Wow.
And on the theme of serendipity, the book is called Accidental Medical Discoveries.
There you
That
go.
is awesome.
And it's all about like how serendipity, dumb luck, and everything played into the discovery. I mean, I'm butchering the subtitle, but
Right.
it was sort of like he wasn't graspy. He was just like, no, I'm just doing this. This is fun. And then it's sort of like he got his break, and it wasn't this painful thing. It was just like
Mm.
him just tapping into what really turned him on. And he wasn't going about it in this like careerist, I'm taking myself so seriously kind of way. It was fun for him. And I really learned a lot just by watching him, and just by, checking in with him, and just seeing that, art is art. And pursuing a career in the arts, I think it's an amazing, fulfilling experience, because even if one never ends up paying their bills, it's a profound way to experience life, and to ask questions, and to see things from other points of view, and to just really, I mean, one of my guiding kind of quotes in life is, Einstein's quote is, creativity is intelligence having fun.
I
And
love that.
I do too. And it's just sort of like, yeah, it's really cool. And it's just like, I love being creative, and I love sitting down writing, and I love going deep on, watching and rewatching films. And I think that, I mean, call me a simpleton, but that might be as good as it gets.
When your dad, so the success at the end, there was success when he was still sitting, like when he was creating, like
Yes,
right. And so the fact that he wound up being traditionally published, it was the frosting on the cake. But the
Yeah.
cake was while he was sitting there creating, doing what he loves. And there was there was a supportive community around him, not walking by and shutting down the computer and saying, no, stop that, you're wasting your time. And
exactly.
so many of our listeners have that environment that they have to overcome. And he didn't, he had a support system around him.
Absolutely. And my mom loved that, he was doing this, because so again, they had me later in life. Like, so my mom was 42 when I was born, my dad was 52. And by the time they moved to Denmark, my mom was 70, my dad was 80. And they were just like, sure, let's retire in Denmark. So they moved out of New York. And the thing is that he started taking Danish classes as an 80-year-old. And because it's Denmark, and it's just put on by the municipality. And after like the third or fourth class, is like, I hate this language. Nobody should ever speak it. And it's a pretty horrible language. And even any Dane will say that. But the thing is that he didn't want to go back to class. And so he, has an MD PhD, and he's like a third grade Danish dropout. So it was also to occupy himself. And what was cool was that, my mom just saw that, he had this like life about him. Like, it's the same thing that I heard on the phone calls of just like, oh, you got to hear this story about how, this was discovered. And what was cool is, he would write, he was never taught formal writing. So he would just be hunting and pecking on his, and it's just like he'd be on Google and he'd call like the library from the town that I grew up in, New Jersey, and they worked out a deal where they shipped him books. And it's just like he would work on rough drafts and then he'd print them out, and he and my mom would actually read them aloud for cadence. And so, because
Wow.
English was her second language, she helped him simplify a lot of things because he'd be so in his head. And it was just sort of like, it became this like really wonderful process that, it really occupied them. It really kept them engaged in kind of the golden years of their lives. And he ended up writing a second book, which was basically weird deaths and diseases of presidents and like cover up and, all of this stuff. Like and he would tell me, you'd never believe what happened to Lincoln, and what the medical profession did. And I'd be like, what happened? But unfortunately, when he got his book deal at 89 years old, my mom unfortunately unexpectedly passed away, and he didn't have that support system to keep reading the rough drafts aloud. So we actually had to rework the book deal, and the second book never got to widespread print. But he just he was incredibly resourceful in like, okay, these are the constraints. I'm in Denmark. I don't know the language. I'm going to make my own fun. And because that's what he always told me. He's just like, as a kid, whenever I'd be like, I'm bored, and he's just like, I'm not your source of entertainment. Like, make your own fun, and it was great because it was just like, okay, cool, I'll be creative, and it's like you can really be amazing when, creatively, when you're actually given a lot of constraints, like no time, no budget, anything. Like, okay, let's hit the ground, let's do it, let's create something. Sometimes that's when like the best art is made.
I love that.
I have so many thoughts, but the last thing you said made me think of at WriterCon, one of the keynote speakers, I think it was April Pike, who said, if you have all the time in the world to write, you will there will be dishes to be done and you will focus on that instead of writing. Like, we all have things that are going to try to keep us from writing. And so having that day job and having those constraints, like, you're going to find those times to write if you really love it.
Yeah.
So much of that story reminded me of April Lynn Pike in that
yes, for sure.
She had her New York Times bestsellers put her husband through law school, but then there was a time where she had to drop out of being a best-selling author and actually pull her kid out of school and homeschool her teenager, and they were able to do that because then he was a lawyer, and then just now she's getting back to being her creative self again, and they live on an island off of Florida, and
she made me want to live there.
and but their daughter, like, she basically took 5 years of her life and rescued her daughter's life, right? And now her daughter is super successful at an art school in Minneapolis, and that would have never happened if that initial creativity spurt never happened, and then that enabled the husband to be able to get his law degree, and like I said, none of that's coincidence. But then now, so talking about day jobs, now she writes content for an app, and she loves it. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's her day job while she's writing her New York Times bestsellers.
I think that that's great. And I think that it's sort of like, okay, we're in 2024 right now. And a lot of the stuff that is now, like what was, is no longer, right? So we grow up with stories about like, what a best-selling author's life looks like, right? And it's not necessarily what is still going on, and of course you're going to have the Stephen Kings and the J.K. Rowlings, but even Stephen King had a day job when he was first, when he wrote Carrie. And if you've ever listened to, I'm assuming your listeners have read or listened to On Writing.
Probably.
Okay.
I have.
Yeah. Well,
Pretty
he
sure
said,
Jon Meyers has.
Yes.
yeah, he says, don't try to monetize, like, don't look at your writing as a source of money. Like, don't do that. I mean, and I think that what I want to say, and I could be wrong, is it's kind of like, I think, his early, works, or his early day jobs, I think informed his writing of Carrie and his early stuff. And I think that as a writer, you need to have that base of, this is how our world is, or this is what the perspective is, because it's going to inform all of your characters and their actions. And it's just like, people want something that's real and authentic. They don't want stock characters doing stock things. They want, something that's what I feel like the most compelling stories are. It's just like kind of almost ripped from the headlines of what we know of everyday life.
100%. 100%.
I think, and I'm not saying nobody should ever aspire to being a best-selling author and living on an island. And I mean, that would be amazing. But I think what I've seen is it almost seems to be like a happy accident.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that I really need this conversation, speaking of serendipity, because I really do wrestle regularly with, I just want to write. I
Yeah.
just want to write. And so all this other stuff is just interrupting me from writing, as opposed to, like, I love how you came to a place where it was like, no, I like my job and it's necessary and it's important and it's just a part of my life. And I think, at least for me growing up, and I think a lot of people for growing up, it's like you have to choose your vocation and you hope that aligns with your calling.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you have your job and then you have your calling, and the calling is the thing that you do on the side. And
I
that's
agree.
beautiful too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, Liz Gilbert also has this really great video on YouTube where she breaks down the difference between a job, a profession, a vocation, and a career. Now, granted, these are all semantics, right?
Right.
But she's talking about, like, she's talking about how a vocation is almost like the highest calling, right? And if you are creative, that is your vocation, despite you might be having a day job, right? Okay. Like, this is what you're called to do. This is what makes you feel alive. And it's just like, I don't know, like, I'm not saying I'm great or anything, but I know that when I sit down and I'm really present with a character, it feels different. The experience feels kind of amazing, and I can just lose myself in the flow state. Like, that's the best that it gets. And it's sort of like, I almost need to have that release from reality, because let's face it, reality can be really brutal. There can be a lot of negativity and darkness, and there is a lot of suffering. I think we're almost confronted on a day-to-day basis, you know, online, which can be just horrible. But just also in our life. And it's sort of like, okay, we're on this earth, and our time is relatively short. I don't want to be in a state of suffering. And for me, writing is just that kind of release, whether it's quote unquote good or not. I need that escape, or else if I didn't, I feel as though I would be, I'd be more like, I don't know what, but I would be filling that void with something else that might be a little bit more destructive.
That's good. I think I have also found, like, writing is a healthy escape.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for me, for my mental health. But when I'm focused so much on, is this going to be my career, and am I going to get published, and am I going to make money with this, it does kind of poison it a little bit, right? The writing doesn't come as freely, and you're worried too much about chasing trends, or is the publisher going to like this, as opposed to just letting that creativity flow naturally.
Yeah.
I talked to a writer after church on Sunday, and she was like as enthusiastic and and as energetic as Charlotte is being right now, right? She lit up when she was talking about the process of writing. But then, like, so if that was 3/4 of the conversation, then she's like, and I know because you have an MFA and I don't, and blah, 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 blah. And then I have to outline a certain way. And when she went into business mode, like, it was like a robot. And
Oh,
it was just awful. And so we have to be, I mean, there's necessary things that have to happen, but you can still have enthusiasm about those things, right? Do you guest
true.
speak anywhere ever, Charlotte?
Me?
Yeah.
Not really, no. I mean, maybe with my boyfriend when, oh, it's so funny. Like I'm watching Mad Men for a second time and he's watching it for the first time. So my guest speaking is me pointing out all the Easter eggs. It's probably a really obnoxious way. Like I'd just be like, I'd hate me if I sat next to me, but I'd be sort of like, no. The answer to your question is no. Although, hey, I'm open to it.
Don't you think she could, Emily? Like,
For sure.
And so Emily just wrote a blog post about her life as as a public speaker now, and so your enthusiasm, I have that same enthusiasm for writing, and I won't speak for Emily, but I think she does too. And but Emily saw me in the grand ballroom, in front of a full grand ballroom, and I started doing crowd work in the middle. Like, what the heck was that? That was not planned. When I was like teasing the two little ladies that were down in front, and like, and I was asking them about local folklore, none of that was planned. And
That's
like, where did that
amazing.
come from? And that was like one of the highlights of that whole session, and they liked it.
That's funny.
That's awesome.
So we're like, that was just a spark of creativity that wasn't planned, but turned out to be and people said afterwards, that, oh, I didn't think of that, or blah blah blah. So anyway,
I love that as an example of creativity outside of like a product. Like it just was in the moment, creativity sparked something.
And it was the room though that sparked it.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't happen in a different room. It was
True.
Those people.
It's so great when moments like that happen. It really is. And I think writing is for everyone. I really do. I think that I think part of I don't know what's going on in our culture, but we think like, oh, MFA, you're a real writer, right?
Yeah.
Or you've worked in Hollywood, or you have credits, you're a real writer, right? Real writer, right? That's what I feel like. Maybe it's my own internal thing, but I think it's for everyone. I think it's just kind of like, you know, it's just allowing yourself the ability to imagine things from a different perspective and exploring that and not caring necessarily about the outcome. I think it's a gift. And I think that it's for everyone. I really do. And I think if more people believe that, I genuinely think that if more people had access to the arts or counted themselves in, and stuff like that, I think that the world would be in a better place, because I feel like it's reaching towards self-realization, and we all have that need to be the best, that whatever the best is, but to just be who we're meant to be.
And I think we've talked about this before, but there's people will like play a sport for fun.
Yeah.
Or they will go dancing on the weekend for fun. Or they will do one of those paint nights for fun. But writing is like, it's like we feel like, oh, well, if I'm going to write, it has to like mean something and it has to matter and I have to sell it. And I think that that's a huge barrier for people that they need to get past, that writing can be for fun.
Yeah.
And there actually is someone in my, I go to a writing night every month, and there's one author there who we asked her, what is she writing and what does she want to do with it? And she's like, I'm just doing this for fun.
Yeah.
And I love that she's putting that time in to a hobby that she is doing truly just for the joy of writing.
April Lynn Pike said that she's writing the novel she's writing right now. She's writing it for her friend, Kathy or Karen or whatever her name was.
Yeah.
And because she had to know
Or
that story.
speaking of dads, my dad wrote a book like 10 years ago or something no, it was more than 10 years ago now. It was like 15 years ago. And I think I was the only one who read it, but it was a kid's book. And so I loved it. And that story is now like something shared between us, that he put this story into my brain. And like that's beautiful. And he loved writing that book.
That's wonderful. That is so great. And that probably is priceless to you. You know, like,
Yeah.
you know, my dad wrote me a book, and it's one of my prized possessions. And you know, like, you can't put a dollar amount on that because it's something that he created. And you know, it's something that it's just like, I mean, I don't really care so much about material things, but I do care about that book that he printed like 50 copies of, you know, on his printer.
Yeah, I love that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So, on this topic, one of the things that I keep thinking about, because this is something that I wrestle with, is I always end up prioritizing things with deadlines. And we've talked before about how lots of writers have multiple jobs and multiple income streams. And so, the thing that I struggle with is going, when am I going to write? And so, I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah. I would love to add. So here's what I do, and I want to invite your audience. So I have a screenwriting power hour that I have with somebody that I met online, and we have it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it is from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern time. And basically, we just show up, because I think Woody Allen once said 90% of doing the work is just showing up. We show up, we just state our intention, and then we just this is a Zoom, we just kind of turn it off. Like, so there's no camera, no mic, no chat. And for about 56 minutes, we just work on the project at hand. And then 2 minutes before, we just check in. How is it for you? You know, and for me, it's been forcing me, even though I hate using the word force or anything like that, but it is the discipline of showing up when I'm in the season of a new job, because it's sort of like the new job that I have. It's great. It's a bit demanding, you know, but it's sort of like I have to show up to this one other person, right? And that is going to just cause me to just, okay, if I'm struggling with this, then, you know, okay, but at least I'm showing up. And sometimes it flows, sometimes it doesn't, but I'm gradually getting momentum for that. And I open it up to your audience that if they want to join us, it's just a simple little writers meetup. All we do is we just state our attention and then just go offline. And it's like that psychic space of knowing other people are creating. That's what causes, I feel like, the work to begin to go, even if it's crappy in the beginning. So if they're interested, you can give me a shout at charlotte@modernscreenplay.com. And just let me know, and I will add you to just the invitation.
Cool.
Thank you so much for that. I absolutely love that. Is that
Yeah.
our call to action?
That is our call to action.
There you
So
go.
it's Charlotte at Modern Screenplay. So it's CHARLOTTE at Modern Screenplay, all one word.com. And it goes from, it's just 1 hour, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern time. And unfortunately, that's the only time that we offer because, yeah, just due to work.
That's good for consistency too, though.
It is. It really is.
All right. So, and then our listeners, if you do that, also let us know and let us know how it goes. So you can let us know on our show notes at writebettertogether.com/podcast, or you can respond in social media under our announcement of this episode.
And if I can also add, if anyone out there really wants to check out my dad's book that he wrote in his 80s, they can go to Amazon. And I'm just looking at it in front of me. It's Accidental Medical Discoveries, how tenacity and pure dumb luck changed the world. And my father's name is Robert Winters.
We
Yeah, I
will
was going to ask you
definitely
that
put
because
that
we'll
in the
put
show
the link
notes.
in the show notes
For
Yeah.
sure.
and so it'll be underneath the YouTube video.
Yeah, I'll send it to you guys after the show.
Cool.
Perfect.
Cool. That was great.
That was amazing, Charlotte. I really needed that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you so much for having me on the show. And I just kind of want to say to all of your listeners, a lot of the negativity that we fear or that we have towards writing and day jobs, a lot of it, don't forget, is self-generated. A lot of it just comes from internal stories that we've absorbed in our culture. They're not necessarily true. And I think that the
Yeah.
most important thing is it's as Liz Gilbert said, be childlike in your work, but don't be childish in real life. So it's perfectly okay to have a day job. You're not less of a writer if you have a day job,
Yeah.
It's just the circumstances that you have right now. I think that as long as you I genuinely believe, as long as you just keep showing up and doing the work, then that is what counts.
I hope
Amen to that. That is so
yeah,
good.
that's great. I was going to say, I hope that the first person that watches this, that joins your group, your writing group, is Liz Gilbert.
Yeah, that would be amazing,
then
right?
then it brings it all full circle.
Yeah, that
And
would
there
be
you go.
amazing.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hey, everybody. It's Jon Meyers from Write Better Together. Look, everybody, it's Emily Brooks.
Hello.
Now, why are we interrupting these people's YouTube stream?
Because we have a Patreon now.
Oh my goodness, I've been waiting for this. So yeah, we have a Patreon now. There's 4 levels. Some of the things that you'll get, excuse me while I read this and there's glare on my glasses. If you're listening in the car, you don't even know. You'll get, depending on what level you subscribe to, there's 4 different levels. You'll get a chapter from Write Anyway. Oh, that's a good one right there. Respond enthusiastically to these
Ooh.
things. Access to 1 new Patreon video each month with ongoing access to the exclusive Patreon video library,
which is already huge.
Already huge. Access to our private Facebook group. Watch
Yay.
for that. Access to our private Discord group.
Ooh.
1 free random gift item, $2 value. Just guess what that might be. A genuine thank you shout out on this podcast. And it just goes up from there all the way up to you can actually have personal one-on-one what do you want to call it, one-on-one instruction or workshop with us, and that's at the highest level. So go check it out. Like it costs nothing. It's free to look at it, right? Go see what everything's there.
Yeah, check it out.
That was amazing. That was crazy amazing. Like I keep saying that she's the smart one because she does this on her blog, that you'll take something and so our Patreon's up now, people. And so if you subscribe to the Patreon, you'll eventually get to hear what she said about Mad Men. She'll take something that we've seen, and she does this on her blog all the time. She'll take something that we've all seen and like have this new original novel not argument, but contention or a new take on it that isn't anywhere else. And so she sees the world through a different set of eyes. And even like with the book, with Liz Gilbert's book, it was her take on Liz Gilbert's book. And so yeah, it was she does that regularly on her blog.
Yeah, I'm very inspired by that, and also like very inspired to read her blog and to learn more from her. I love analyzing film. Every time my husband and I watch a movie, we have to kind of have a debrief and like analyze like what went well and what did not. So I love that she does that.
And
I was just very inspired by that whole conversation to think more positively. So.
And it is mostly screenplays and film, but that's not all. There's TV
Yeah.
shows, there's books,
Mm-hmm.
there's something for everybody.
Cool.
Yeah, it was great. What was your? So you said it was serendipitous because you needed to hear it now. Like, what were you going through that you needed to hear that now?
I have been feeling that I get frustrated when my work, which I love, teaching, and then also all the other things that I do, like that I sometimes get mad that it's interrupting my writing, as opposed to thinking this is a really good opportunity, this is helping the family, and I can still write. Like I will still find times to write. I am bad about prioritizing anything with deadlines, and because my writing often doesn't have deadlines, it gets kind of pushed onto the back burner. And so I would like to find a more consistent writing practice that makes me feel like I can do my day job and write, write anyway.
Like her group,
Mm-hmm.
like that was a good example of that.
Yeah, I love that, and I
So
hope you all join.
yeah, so do I. So our book is out, and like it's not why it's not on either of our bookshelves. I just covered up Martin Short's book with our book. Speaking of Martin Short, and there you go. No more Martin Short. I covered him up. I have one more thing to say, and it'll be short. And I'm only saying it so I have accountability.
Oh,
You are encouraging me to write a memoir, and
yay!
Bob is encouraging me to write a memoir. It's not happening until 2026. And I have a specific reason. We can talk about it like maybe on the Bob episode. And
Okay.
but I have reasons and of why it's not going to happen until 2026. And some of them involve our what we're doing next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. I hope you do that.
Yes, I will.
Friends, if you want to keep being encouraged to write anyway, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you always know when there's a new episode. And if you want to even take that a step further, you can subscribe to our newsletter so that you get updates on community things, when we have webinars, all the things. So you can go to our website, writebettertogether.com, and there will be a link there on the homepage for you to subscribe. Also, we would love to hear your reviews. So share your reviews on Spotify or wherever you're listening. That also helps other people find us.
All the things.
So we appreciate it.
We appreciate them.
We do.
We should thank all the people that have bought our book.
I know.
Besides the fact that they watched us, like so many people. And then I've gotten Facebook messages this week of, I'm sorry I didn't buy your book at WriterCon, but I bought it yesterday. I'll have it tomorrow and stuff like that. And more than one. And so
I did that at WriterCon. I took a bunch of pictures of books I wanted because I knew they wouldn't all fit in my suitcase. But my friend Anna, who I talked to yesterday, she bought 2. So we've got 2 copies in Wisconsin.
Oh, that's cool.
She bought one for herself and one for her friend who writes and who listens. So
thank you, Anna. I love Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Because cheese.
Of course. Hey, Jon Meyers.
Yes. I get to learn something.
So I went on a walk, and it wasn't a stupid walk. It was a beautiful walk. And as I was walking, I thought, how many edible plants are there surrounding me? Because I have a book. I know you're going to hate this part because nature is dirty. # nature is dirty.
0.
I believe that nature is beautiful.
It is beautiful, but it has a layer of dirt on it.
Yeah. Anyway, I was like, because I have some books on foraging and I've been learning about foraging. And so I'm going to share my screen, hopefully.
Did you forage for berries? Is that what you're going to tell me?
No.
I have to guess which one of these is edible?
I want you to guess which 3 of them are edible.
Oh my gosh. I can't even recognize poison ivy. So when I grew
This isn't
up,
a game. You don't actually have to know. Remember, it's Hey Jon Meyers.
when I grew up, poison ivy was red because I grew up in Chicago. Now in my undisclosed location, poison ivy is green, and so I don't even recognize it. All right. So there's 3 things in this picture,
Yep, 3 edible plants.
and you can't point at them in any way, right? Because it's a
Um,
screen sharing thing.
Can you see my cursor?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
So
I can. It's really light, but
I'll
I
show
can see
you
it.
which ones. Here, I'll tell you what. Off the top of your head, do you notice if any of them are edible? And
I
then I
think
will
I
go to the
see
next slides where
one.
I have zoomed in pictures.
Okay, yeah, do that. I think I
Okay.
see one that's edible
Which
after we
one?
watch it.
Do you know what it is?
Well, when you get to the individual ones, I'll say. No, I
Okay.
don't know what it is. I don't know what any of them are.
I think I may have named them, so hopefully the names don't come up on the.
Like mint.
Yeah. Okay.
I hope the names do come up. So there's 4, and then 3 of them are edible. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, there was just it was just oh my goodness, we didn't even explain this to the listeners. I showed him a picture of just a bunch of
weeds.
bunch of weeds, and said that 3 of them. So now we're zooming in on one. It has 3 leaves. And those leaves are kind of jaggedy.
So
And
we're
then
only zooming in on the edible ones, or is one of these not going to be edible?
I'm only zooming in on the edible ones, but I want you to see, like, do you know what they are?
Okay, that is a strawberry.
Yes, this one is a wild strawberry. Congratulations.
I literally see the strawberry.
That's I tried to make it easier for you.
Thank you. And I would not eat that because it's dirty and a dog could have gone to the bathroom on it.
That's I mean, all vegetables and fruits come from the ground.
Not the ones at Kroger. No dog went to the bathroom on those at Kroger.
Okay.
Okay, continue.
All right, this one is a plant that
Dandelion.
Yeah, it's dandelion.
So I dated a vegan. I've dated
Right.
more than one vegan, and I had like everything for her Impossible Burger except I didn't have any lettuce. So I had tomato, I had pickles, I had all the things that she liked. She went outside and got dandelion leaves out of
Yep.
my yard and put them on her Impossible Burger. And I'm like, what is, like, a dog could have gone to the bathroom on that. What are you doing?
Well, you should definitely wash it.
She
But yeah,
did, but
that's good. Yes, you can eat dandelion leaves. The roots are really good. My favorite tea right now is roasted dandelion root tea. You can eat the flowers. It's delicious. But leave some for the wildlife as well.
my Uncle Ronnie made dandelion wine.
Ooh. I
I
bet
don't know
that's
anything about
interesting.
it because I don't drink, but
I have no idea what that would taste like.
this is a good one.
This one's my favorite.
They're all good. That's a
So-
clover.
Well, I was going to say, so this one, listeners, looks like a clover, but
And
the
then
leaves are
tastes
slightly
like-
different.
It tastes like honey.
No.
When I was a little kid, before I became a germaphobe, we ate clover that tasted like honey.
Wow. So this is actually not clover.
Okay.
The leaves, if you notice, are heart-shaped.
Okay.
And then if you can see my cursor, there's this little green pod here. And then there's these little yellow flowers. So
Okay.
these leaves and the pods are edible, and they taste like lemon.
Why?
And they're delicious. So they're a great garnish. So those are not the only edible wild plants that I
Did
found.
you name? I didn't hear that. If you name this,
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. This is wood sorrel.
Okay, that's not a name. No, never heard of that one before. The lemon clover. I will forever remember this as the lemon clover.
Lemon clover. It is delicious. It's a great garnish. So yeah, there you go. There's some wild edible plants. There's actually so many, and this was just on a walk. This was on a just regular path. I also saw things. There were tons of passion flowers. Oh, I should have shown you the passion flowers, and I didn't upload it. I'll put it on the screen in retrospect. There was passion fruit as well, like everywhere. There were pokeberries, which I know people are like, pokeberries, those are poisonous. You can eat them, but not the seeds. But also, like, don't take my advice and die.
Dude, yeah.
Um, so do your research. Plantain, wild
So I know what
lettuce.
those look like.
You do.
A plantain. It looks like a banana.
It's wild plantain, so it's different. There's not actually, it's not actually like that.
If a bird eats the seed from the one you said before, will it die? Or only humans will die?
So I think what happens is you can eat this. Again, don't take my advice. Like, legally, don't take my advice. You can eat them, but you can't chew the seeds. So the seeds will just go right through you. So the birds can eat the seeds, but they go right through them. And that's why you see them like all over the place, because birds actually are excreting them and planting more pokeberries.
What kind of show is this? We're talking about dogs and birds going to the bathroom. We don't have bodily functions on our show.
So one last thing so I love this whole thing about foraging. I think it's wonderful. And something I learned recently, there was a new study that came out that said that people's, I know you don't like this word. I'm going to try to find it. People's stomach health is closely related to how much variety of plants they eat. And so foraging allows you to have a bigger variety of plants in your diet that kind of helps your stomach adapt. And then the other thing is you do want to be careful because you want to leave some for the wildlife. So don't be
a pig.
Yeah, don't be greedy. Leave some for wildlife, especially things like passion flower is such a good host for a lot of insects and butterflies. And so don't overdo it, but you can have a little treat every once in a while.
Emily, I promise I will leave
I know you will.
So much for the wildlife in
I'll
my
say
yard.
one more thing is I went to some friend's house the other day and they actually had made wild sumac tea, and it was delicious.
Isn't that poison, like poison ivy, sumac?
I believe there are 2 different kinds of sumac, but this particular sumac berry is not poisonous.
It was delicious, but their throat was scratchy for the next 2 weeks. Well, I learned something that I will never use in real life.
Well, maybe our listeners will. And if you're a new listener, I like to think of these segments. One, they're just fun, but also you can think about them as writing prompts too. Like we're expanding your experience of the world and things that you know about that you can go, how can I use that in my writing?
And it'll pop up.
Yep.
20 years from now, you'll be writing something and you'll remember, oh, I saw that on this podcast.
I mean, if you've read Hunger Games, so much of it is like foraging references where she's like, she foraged this, she foraged this. So know your plants and you will survive the Hunger Games.
So it's not just a writing prompt, it's a survival tip.
Oh, 100% it's a survival tip.
There you go. Awesome.
Oh, but also do your research. They do have different properties. I love following High Garden Tea on Instagram because it's the best tea ever. And she's also very smart and knows exactly what plants should be used for and what they should not be used for. So follow her.
Cool. That'll be in the show notes.
Yes.
Now what are we doing?
I think it's time for the final act.
Exciting.
Okay.
Emily, it's time to play Don't Quit Your Day Job. Oh my goodness. It matches up with what we talked about. So I'm going to give you 4 jobs, and then I am going to give you 4 friends of the show / authors, and you're going to tell me which of these day jobs that they quit. You're going to match up the people to the job they quit.
Oh my goodness.
What is your prize? Emily is very small. We established that. Her husband's tall. She's small. But we haven't established she has a very tiny car. And so on the way home from Oklahoma City, I bought her a tiny license plate with her name on it. Emily, where did I buy it? I bought it at Stuckey's.
I love it so much.
From the Oklahoma
it's so
salad sauce Stuckey's.
Is it a magnet?
It's a magnet.
You know what's funny?
What?
My husband and I collect magnets
Well, now you
everywhere
have
we go.
an Emily, Oklahoma
That's
Stuckies
great.
magnet because we love Stuckies. Now Emily will be like, I have never established that I like Stuckies. That's just you. And I'm like, well,
I don't dislike them. I have no opinion because I've never tried them, but they look good.
We love Stuckies. All right, so here we go. First, I'm going to tell you the jobs, and then I will reveal the people, and then you can tell me who quit which job. Okay. First job. Tape unsticker from my hand. The first job is temp secretary in a bank.
Okay.
Yeah, you might want to write these down if you can't see them. Second job is pizza shop. Next job is personnel placement in like a temp agency. The last job is asbestos inspector.
Oh.
How many do you have to get right to win your prize? 2? 2 out of 4? 3 out of 4?
I don't know. It's your game.
3 out of 4.
What was the personnel something?
Pizza secretary in a pizza secretary. Temporary secretary in a bank. Pizza shop. Personnel placement at a temp agency. And asbestos inspector. All right, the first person from Australia is former contributor to a previous episode, Allison Ripley Kubit, who has a new book out. I've already ordered it. It's not here yet. Here's her old book, Misadventures in the Screen Trade. Her new book is The Accidental Plus One, and it just came out Tuesday, and so we'll put it in the show notes. So Allison Ripley Kubit, pick one of these jobs, and I'll match, and then I'll give you it at the end. You'll have the opportunity to move them around.
Oh, okay. I will say personnel placement.
Personnel placement is where Allison is going. The next one is WriterCon bracelet purveyor, Mary Davis. And we will like
I wish I had mine.
With like we did with Charlotte Winters. Mine is right over there, but I don't want to leave the camera to go get it. We will put a link to her blog and to her website in the show notes. So Mary Davis, you have temp secretary in a bank, pizza shop, asbestos inspector.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to say pizza shop.
Pizza shop for Mary Davis. The next person is author whose new book just came out the week before WriterCon, Betsy Kulikowski. We have temp secretary in a bank, or is asbestos inspector left?
I'm going to say secretary.
Secretary in a bank. And
this is hard.
Last but not least, that's not the way it works. Jessica's Vampire Diary author, Bob Signs. All you have left is asbestos inspector.
Oh my goodness. I guess that's going to be Bob Signs.
All right. So now you have a chance to move them around. And I hope you win, because what am I going to do with this license plate if you don't win?
Oh my goodness.
Betsy, you have Betsy Kulikowski as a temp secretary in a bank. You have Mary Davis as a pizza shop. You have Allison Ripley Kubit as personnel placement. And you have Bob Signs as an asbestos inspector. What would you like to move?
You know what? I actually feel good about them.
The way they are?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm going to leave them because I will overthink it otherwise.
Can I tell you only have one right?
Oh, no. That's not good.
The
you're
one that I
helping
said
me?
would be hard is Betsy Kulikowski, because she's had a million jobs. She still has her day job, speaking of what we talked about with Charlotte Winters, but it's not one of these. It's a different one. But it would be a clue to what the real one is. So do you want to know the right one? And then
yes,
move them around? All right.
Yes.
So the right one is pizza shop and Mary Davis.
Yay!
Ding, ding, ding. She just graduated from high school. Did you know that?
What?
And she's like, I haven't had that many jobs. I just graduated from high school, but I worked in a pizza shop.
That's actually why I thought it had to be a pizza shop. I was like, she seems so young to to have had.
I didn't know she was that young though, but now we know.
I didn't either. Good for her.
All right, so now all these are wrong. So
Oh my gosh. Okay.
tell me where you want to move.
Betsy was an asbestos. How do you even say that?
Asbestos.
Asbestos inspector.
Okay. Now
Bob
is either personnel placement or a temp secretary in a bank. And then Allison is the other one.
Personnel. Okay, Bob is the personnel. I'm going to get them all wrong again. And Allison is the secretary.
It's not a positive attitude. But I would like you to repeat that sentence. Your negative sentence. What did you just say? Your negativity. You said you were going to get them all wrong.
Yeah.
Guess what? You got them all right.
What?
So Allison was a temp secretary in a bank, in the basement where the squirrels were, and
the squirrels.
That's what she said, and the secret, like a secret squirrel underground lair beneath the bank. I also worked at a bank in high school. There were no squirrels, or I can't remember if it was in a basement or not. Bob worked in the personnel placement at a temp agency, mismatching people with jobs to fill in slots at the temp agency, and hated it. He lasted 2 weeks.
That sounds like something he would hate. Yeah.
And then Betsy has had a million jobs. Right now, she's an inspector for the state where she does building inspections and other things. She's a safety coordinator for the state.
I have no idea. That's amazing.
But she's had a ton of jobs, but they're all kind of fallen. Well, she was a French tutor. So I almost put that one up here.
Oh my goodness.
But their episode that comes out today, so it'll be old by the time you're watching this on October 1st, but you can still go back and watch it on Unfreaking Believable, is about 9/11 controversies. And because she worked in 9/11 cleanup. So she also did that.
Oh my goodness.
So she's done everything. So there you go.
Wow.
I guess I'm going to give you the license plate anyway, since I have no purpose for it.
Well, thanks for letting me cheat. And also, that was awesome.
So there you go.
I love it.
And guess what, Stuckies? we couldn't have done it
without you. We actually said it at the same time.